Andrew Fodge again with Fitness by Andrew Personal Training. We're based out in Arizona with locations in Scottsdale and Mesa. And this is our January golf fitness tip of the month for the Arizona Golf Association. And with me again is Kelsey Kipp. He's going to help me demonstrate some of our exercises today. And today what we're going to work on is some creative movements using a cable apparatus, focusing on hip stability and mobility, as well as some core activation. Now, a lot of you guys might be familiar with cables. They're in most of our gyms. You might be familiar with movements like one-arm chest press, one-arm pull, maybe a stationary lunge or a squat. What we're going to do is try to get beyond those basic movements and try to get more into an isolation type position, working the front, the sides, inside and outside, and the rear of the hip and the gluteus. So if you don't happen to have a cable apparatus, if you have a buddy and some tubing, kind of like what we have here, this FMS tubing that we have hooked up to the frame, this can also work for some of the drills. But for what we're going to show you, the cable apparatus works because we can increase the weight. And we're going to use pretty lightweight today just to make sure we have the technique sound and the movement correct. Okay, so here's our first exercise. First exercise is basically what I call a standing cable over. Now what we're going to do is have Kelsey sit right next to the cable, and with the cable apparatus that I have, I've taken the load off the stacks, and I've connected one cable side to the other, which basically creates a hurdle. So if you don't want to go out and buy hurdles and then have that in your gym or your studio, which is totally cool, use your apparatus to make a makeshift hurdle. Now depending on the height of your athlete and their ability, you can either make your hurdle higher or lower, depending on what they can do, okay? So I'm gonna have Kelsey stand right next to the cable, and I want her in a ready position. I want abdominals engaged, glutes are ready, posture's ready, and I want her arms across her chest. The reason for that is I don't want her arms helping her too much with stability. I want her torso to have to figure out what to do. Okay, so once she's ready, she's gonna bring one leg over the hurdle, and then the other, and then right back. Now we're working hip rotation and mobility of the hip, as well as stability as she shifts from side to side. This is a great warm-up drill before you do squats, lunges of any type. I like it just to kind of get those hips nice and loose, nice and warm. Plus it gets her mind right. She has to focus on what she's doing. It's a great drill at the beginning of your workout to get those hips fired up. About 10 reps on each side is sufficient. Perfect. And that's our cable over. So our next exercise is called a flow row. Now typically with our athletes, we start them out balancing on one leg and rowing the upper body with the opposite arm, either with rotation or without, keeping the hips stable throughout the movement. The difference that we're going to do with the flow row is instead of keeping those hips stable, I actually want Kelsey to open her hips up while she's rowing. Okay, and what we're going to get is a lot of rotation and work on the stabilizing hip, where that glute med area is. It's going to be fired up, it's going to be burning like crazy here in a second. So I'm going to have Kelsey step back into position. She's going to balance on her left leg. I want the right thigh parallel to the floor, and as she pulls back with her right arm and elbow, I want this right hip and leg to open up to the side. Just like that. That left hip, that left glute has to do a ton of work to keep her balance and to open up the rest of her body. So in terms of the isolation, if those hips were stable, she might feel it in the glute, in the hip. But when we start opening up that hip, man, it's gonna start firing up. It's gonna burn like crazy. 10 reps is sufficient on each side. And for the weight, you do not need a ton of weight for this, because even though the upper body is working, it's moving, I want the emphasis to be on the hip. So we only need 7.5, 10 pounds in the stack. You could go a little heavier, but for what she's doing in this form, that's perfect. This is our flow row. So here's our next exercise, emphasizing core activation and really picking more on the lateral sides of the hip, both inside and outside. And what we're going to do is I'm going to have Kelsey go from a standing position down to a full kneeling position and back up, without letting her hands get pulled off balance. Come on, hang on tight for me. So I don't want the weight to win. I don't want the weight to pull her this way, nor do I want her to overcompensate this way. I want that handle dead center, lined up at the midline of her body, forcing the core activation and making the outside and inside of her hips working the whole time. Okay, so once you're ready, Kelsey, abs are engaged, posture's good, elbows tucked in, and one step down. Do that full kneeling, and then come right back up to full standing. Good, and again. So as she's moving, adductors, abductors, all the stabilizers of the hips are working. We're basically getting the benefit of like a step up or a lunge by having her go from a standing to a full kneeling position. Now we're going to do maybe 5 to 10 reps with one leg leading, and then we'll switch leads, and then we'll turn around. So if you're looking for a great leg exercise that works the insides and outsides of your hips and forces core activation without twisting your body, this is excellent. We're getting everything. Hips, legs, core, posture. This is our standing to full kneeling movement with lateral resistance or anti-rotation. And this is our last exercise. It's called a pull-off press. Now what we're going to do is, starting from a full kneeling, I'm going to have Kelsey gradually work her way up to a split stance on both legs. Now, even though this looks like an upper body movement, a pressing movement, which we are using the arms and shoulders, I want the emphasis here in the core and in the hips. So as she's moving from this position up, I want her to always be thinking of abdominals engaged, glutes engaged while she's moving those arms. So I'm going to have her do about 3 reps from each position. And start from you, Kelsey. So she's engaged with those abdominals, posture's good, elbows are tucked in, while she presses out to full extension and pulls back to where those wrists hit her ribs, and then moves to the next position. 3 to 5 reps per position should be sufficient, and we don't need a ton of weight to get those hips and those core muscles really going. Good job. And the speed is good. She does not need to go any faster than this, because I want to maintain this strength, this stability that she has right now through her core and her hips. Good job. Good job. And last one. Then we could do a square stance position, but for today, we've already done from each position. This will be about 15 reps. That's sufficient for this side, because we also got to turn around and do the other side. So that's our pull-off press from full kneeling to split stance positions. Using the cable apparatus, hopefully you can add those into your workout to put some activation in your hips and your core, maybe some different movements that you're not doing currently, and maybe you feel the need, like I need more hip activation, I need more mobility in those hips, but I just don't know what to do, I'm tired of doing stuff on the ground. Well, get up off the ground, do some things with the cables, and see if those help you. Now, if you have questions, we do golf fitness screenings both here in Scottsdale and at our Mesa location, and February 12th and 13th, we will be at Golf Fest doing complimentary golf fitness screenings. So if you come by our booth, or if you contact us ahead of time and set up a time to meet with us, that Friday and Saturday, we're gonna be there from 8 to 5 on both days. We'll do your fitness screening. We'll see where you're at. We'll see what limitations you might have. And I'm gonna give you some pointers of things you can do. I will give you some video clips of things you can do as well. I wanna help you. So hopefully, if you have time, come out to Mesa, come out to Longbow Golf Club on the 12th and 13th of February. We'll be there all day, and I wanna help you. We'll talk to you soon.